In March 1902, a photograph taken at a funeral in Salem, Massachusetts, initially seemed like just another somber moment captured from the Victorian era. But recent investigations have uncovered something startling. The photograph shows the funeral of 29-year-old Eleanor Ashford, a well-respected librarian who tragically passed away under mysterious circumstances. At the time, her death was attributed to sudden cardiac collapse, a diagnosis made by the local doctor. For the community, it seemed like just another unexpected loss, but for someone hiding in plain sight, it was the perfect opportunity to commit a heinous crime. Eleanor Ashford was no ordinary woman. Coming from a family of successful merchants, she inherited a substantial fortune at 25 and took full control of the family business after her parents died in a carriage accident. At the time, it was rare for women, especially in conservative cities like Salem, to be financially independent. This made Eleanor a standout figure as she expanded the family business into new areas like investing in railway companies and real estate. Her financial management was meticulous, and she maintained professional relationships with financiers from major cities like Boston and New York, networks typically reserved for men of that era. However, her independence made her vulnerable. As a woman managing such wealth, Eleanor not only attracted suitors but also opportunistic individuals looking to take advantage of her financial success. Just weeks before her death, Eleanor began suspecting that her investments were being manipulated. Letters found later on her desk reveal her growing concern over discrepancies in her financial reports. One letter, written just days before her death, highlighted her belief that she had uncovered serious irregularities in her finances, along with a request for legal help. Unfortunately, these letters were never sent. They were found sealed on her desk after her death. Eleanor passed away on March 15, 1902, under what seemed like natural circumstances. Her housemate, Margaret O'Brien, found her body early that morning after she failed to appear for breakfast, as was her routine. The attending doctor, Dr. William Crawford, concluded that Eleanor died of acute heart failure following sudden convulsions and respiratory paralysis. However, Margaret's description of the scene painted a different picture. She noted that Eleanor's body was stiff, her fists clenched, and her face contorted in terror. Furthermore, she mentioned a strange, bitter odor in the room, which today is recognized as a symptom of strychnine poisoning. Strychnine, a poison commonly used by assassins in the early 20th century, could be easily purchased at pharmacies under the guise of pest control. It caused symptoms often mistaken for heart attacks or seizures, making it a perfect tool for poisoning someone without detection. The poison works by interfering with the nervous system, causing violent muscle spasms and often leading to death within hours. To those around her, Eleanor's death appeared to be a natural event, but the signs of poisoning were clear in retrospect. The eerie details of Eleanor Ashford's death, hidden for decades, are now being revealed, thanks to modern technology and a fresh perspective on old photographs. This once-forgotten crime, uncovered through the careful analysis of both historical records and new technologies, exposes a chilling tale of deception and murder. Who could have had both the access and opportunity to poison Eleanor Ashford? The answer lay within her own circle of family and trusted professionals. Henry Richmond, though a distant cousin, had been a part of Eleanor's life for years. Introduced by her father when Eleanor was still a young woman with little responsibility, Richmond seemed like a trustworthy figure. He was well educated, with a background in accounting from Harvard and experience in banking investments in Boston. After Eleanor's parents died in a tragic carriage accident, it was natural for her to rely on Richmond for financial guidance. For 3 years, Richmond appeared to manage her investments competently. The reports he gave her showed steady growth, and she trusted him completely. Richmond made monthly visits to Salem to discuss strategies, staying at the local boarding house and maintaining a regular but discreet presence in her life. What Eleanor didn't realize was that Richmond was secretly manipulating her finances. Behind the scenes, he created fake investments and funneled portions of her funds into his own personal accounts. Richmond's scheme was both clever and bold. He set up phantom investments in non-existent companies, providing Eleanor with falsified documents showing profits that never existed. Meanwhile, The real money was being siphoned off to fund his lavish lifestyle in Boston. He lived two completely different lives. To Elena and the Salem community, he was a dependable financial advisor, but to his associates in Boston, he was a reckless gambler and speculator. For 3 years, Richmond managed to keep up the ruse, convincing Elena that her fortune was growing steadily. In reality, he had stolen almost $12,000, which was nearly all of the inheritance she had received from her parents. Elena only began to suspect something was wrong in January 1902, when she tried to check on one of the railway companies where Richmond claimed to have invested her money. To her shock, the company had no record of any investment under her name. This discovery led her to investigate further, uncovering that her entire portfolio was a fabrication. Determined to get to the bottom of it, Elena hired a private investigator, Richard Fleming, in February 1902. Fleming, a former Boston police detective turned financial fraud investigator, was known for his meticulous work. He began by examining the documents provided by Elena, but soon expanded his investigation to independently verify the existence of the supposed investments. What he uncovered was a sophisticated fraud operation. Richmond had not only stolen money from Elena, but had also created an entire network of forged documents, including fake company reports, forged bank correspondence, and counterfeit stock certificates. To further conceal his actions, Richmond had even assumed multiple false identities to carry out his scheme. Henry Richmond, using at least 3 different names, managed bank accounts under these aliases, all backed by seemingly legitimate documents. This discovery revealed that Richmond's scheme was far more complex and criminal than Eleanor Ashford had ever suspected. In his final report on March 14, 1902, just 1 day before Elena's death, investigator Richard Fleming wrote, "Evidence strongly points to deliberate criminal activity by Henry Richmond. The methods show an in-depth understanding of the client's business and access to confidential information. Immediate legal action is recommended, as the suspect has the means to destroy evidence if alerted." For Richmond, Elena had become a serious threat. Her investigation into his fraudulent activities not only threatened to expose him but would also ruin his standing in Boston's financial world. In a profession where trust was everything, an accusation of theft would not just end his career, but would lead to prison and total social ruin. Richmond realized that if Elena had access to Fleming's report, which would likely happen soon, she would have enough proof to convict him. To prevent this, he knew he had to act fast and eliminate her. Richmond's choice to poison Elena with strychnine was calculated and cold. He was familiar with the precise dosages and timing required for the poison due to his university chemistry courses. His regular visits to Elena's home, disguised as financial meetings, gave him the perfect chance to poison her food or drink without suspicion. The most telling sign of his planning came from Margaret O'Brien, Elena's housemaid. Margaret reported that Elena had complained about a bitter taste in her mouth during the 2 days before her death, a classic symptom of strychnine poisoning. Rather than administering a single fatal dose, Richmond opted for small, regular doses over time. This method would minimize suspicion from doctors while ensuring the poison worked slowly. The timing of Elena's death was no coincidence either. Richmond had arranged a business trip to New York for March 16, creating a perfect alibi that would place him far from Salem when her body was discovered. The trip was confirmed by hotel records, giving Richmond the alibi he believed was foolproof. However, he overlooked one crucial detail. Elena had shared her suspicions with others, and a professional investigator already had detailed evidence of his fraud. When Fleming tried to contact Elena on March 15 to discuss his final report, he was told that she had passed away overnight. As an experienced investigator, Fleming immediately suspected that her death was linked to his findings. He contacted local authorities but encountered resistance. Dr. William Crawford had already issued a death certificate attributing the cause to natural causes, and the Ashford family was more focused on funeral arrangements than questioning the circumstances. Richmond, meanwhile, had returned from his trip early, claiming he had canceled his New York plans due to the tragic news of Elena's death. His presence in Salem during the funeral seemed only fitting, as he was the family's financial expert and essential for managing inheritance issues. Elena's sister, Catherine Ashford, commissioned a photograph to mark the funeral, following the family tradition of documenting significant moments with permanent images. In the early 1900s, post-mortem photography was common for families with the means to hire professional photographers. Samuel Bennett, the photographer selected by the family, was well known in Salem for his skill in capturing formal compositions that suited solemn occasions. Samuel Bennett, the photographer hired by Eleanor Ashford's family, was known for his meticulous record-keeping of each photography session, noting everything from lighting to the behavior of the subjects. In his notes about Eleanor's funeral, he made observations that now seem crucial to understanding the situation. He mentioned the difficulty of composing the shot due to the large number of attendees and the irregular lighting caused by intermittent clouds. He also noted that a person, identified later as Henry Richmond, arrived at the last moment, forcing Bennett to quickly rearrange the participants. What is particularly interesting about this is that Richmond had told the family he couldn't attend the funeral due to urgent business in Boston. His sudden appearance suggests an impulsive decision driven by circumstances he hadn't anticipated. Modern facial analysis techniques have since revealed that Richmond was strategically positioned in the photograph, directly making eye contact with Richard Fleming, the private investigator also present at the funeral. This arrangement wasn't accidental. Richmond likely knew that Fleming posed an ongoing threat even after Eleanor's death. Fleming had uncovered evidence of the financial frauds and had raised suspicions about the circumstances surrounding Eleanor's sudden passing. Richmond's presence at the funeral wasn't just about mourning, it was about evaluating the threat posed by Fleming. He needed to know what Fleming had discovered and how he could stop him from going public. The body language captured in the photograph is telling. Richmond's posture was tense, his hands rigid, and his expression revealed what experts call predatory vigilance, the behavior of someone trying to appear innocent while constantly assessing potential risks. Even more significant, Richmond was positioned to monitor both Fleming and the cemetery's exit routes, allowing him to keep an eye on the investigator while maintaining his escape options. Richmond had underestimated Fleming's determination. The investigator had taken steps to protect his findings, making multiple copies of the report and storing them in secure locations that Richmond wasn't aware of. 3 days after the funeral, Fleming presented his evidence to local authorities, including the sheriff and prosecutor. The evidence included extensive documentation of Richmond's fraud, along with forged documents and fake identities used to facilitate the theft. Fleming also connected Eleanor's sudden death to Richmond, presenting a strong case that she had been murdered to cover up his crimes. Fleming recommended exhuming Eleanor's body for toxicological analysis, which could detect traces of strychnine and confirm poisoning. This suggestion alarmed Richmond. He knew that even with the limited technology of 1902, testing could reveal the poison, which would likely lead to the discovery of his involvement. With the evidence of fraud and the motive for murder clear, Richmond knew that the stakes had become much higher. Richmond needed to act fast to prevent the exhumation and discredit Fleming. Using his connections and influence in Boston, he attempted to put pressure on local authorities. As a respected figure in the financial community and a relative of the Ashford family, Richmond had enough sway to challenge Fleming's credibility. He contacted prominent lawyers, claiming that he was being falsely accused by an investigator with a questionable reputation. Richmond even produced falsified documents, allegedly proving the legitimacy of his financial dealings with Eleanor, including fake contracts and forged correspondence, to suggest that Eleanor had approved his investment strategies. At the same time, Richmond launched a quiet defamation campaign against Richard Fleming, spreading rumors about Fleming's supposed incompetence and questionable financial motivations. He suggested that Fleming was attempting to extort money from the Ashford family by making up accusations, preying on their grief for personal gain. This tactic initially worked to some extent. Local authorities, unfamiliar with the complexities of financial fraud, were swayed by Richmond's reputation and the complicated evidence presented by Fleming. Sheriff Morrison was hesitant to authorize the exhumation of Eleanor's body based on what seemed to be speculative suspicions from a private investigator. However, Fleming had anticipated this and had already contacted authorities in Boston, including detectives experienced with financial fraud. These investigators reviewed the evidence Fleming had gathered and confirmed his findings. They uncovered multiple irregularities in Richmond's financial dealings, including suspicious bank accounts and transactions that couldn't be explained. More importantly, they discovered that Richmond had used the same fraudulent methods to steal from at least 2 other women over the past few years. This revelation shifted Eleanor Ashford's case from a potential isolated incident to part of a larger pattern of criminal behavior. As a result, Boston authorities issued an arrest warrant for Richmond, charging him with multiple counts of financial fraud, document forgery, and suspected homicide. Richmond's reaction to the arrest warrant was telling. Instead of facing the authorities or defending himself through legal means, he vanished from Boston the night before the warrant was to be executed. His disappearance was a clear sign of guilt and showed that he had planned an escape route in case his crimes were uncovered. Further investigation revealed that Richmond had created a fake identity, complete with forged documents and hidden financial resources in accounts under false names. He had set up this safety net during the years he committed his fraud, demonstrating a level of criminal sophistication far beyond simple opportunism. The photograph taken at Eleanor Ashford's funeral thus became much more than a mere record of a solemn occasion. It captured the last known image of Henry Richmond before he fled justice. More importantly, it provided undeniable evidence of his presence at the funeral of his victim, an audacious act showing both his criminal arrogance and his psychological need to witness the aftermath of his crimes. Modern facial recognition technology later confirmed Richmond's identity in the photograph. His distinct facial features, including a small scar above his left eyebrow and a slightly deformed ear from a childhood accident, matched known photographs of him from that time. In an even more intriguing turn, researchers discovered that the photograph had been altered after it was initially developed. Using microscopic spectral analysis, they found signs of manual retouching around Richmond's figure. Certain areas of the photo had been scraped, and pigments were applied by hand to obscure his facial features. The precision of this retouching suggested that it was done by someone with professional knowledge of photographic chemistry and access to laboratory equipment. This raises an important question. Did Richmond personally alter the photograph, or did he have help from someone with photographic expertise? The answer might be hidden in the financial records of Samuel Bennett, the photographer who originally took the image. Receipts discovered in the Salem Historical Society archives revealed that Samuel Bennett, the photographer who took the funeral photo of Eleanor Ashford, received a hefty payment of $300 just 2 weeks after the funeral. This amount was more than 3 times what he would normally earn in 3 months. The payment was made in cash, with no client identification, which was unusual since Bennett typically kept detailed records of all transactions. Even more suspicious, Bennett made a personal note in his diary on the same day: special work completed. Heavy conscience, but financial needs prevailed. This suggests that Richmond not only attended the funeral but also paid Bennett to alter the photographic evidence of his presence. Richmond's meticulous planning extended to manipulating the one piece of visual evidence that could link him to the crime. The perfect crime had been carefully executed, down to the alteration of the photograph itself. After Richmond fled, the investigation didn't stop. Authorities pursued him for years, with leads stretching from Canada to South America. There were even unconfirmed reports of sightings in Argentina and Brazil, countries that lacked extradition agreements with the U.S. Richard Fleming, devastated that his discoveries hadn't come in time to save Elena, devoted his career to tracking Richmond down. He expanded his investigation internationally, working with authorities in multiple countries and following up on every tip about Richmond's whereabouts. In 1907, 5 years after Elena's death, Fleming received a credible tip that Richmond was seen in Buenos Aires, living under a false identity as a financial advisor to European expatriates. Fleming immediately traveled to Argentina but found that Richmond had vanished once again, apparently alerted to the investigation. This would be the last confirmed sighting of Richmond. He had successfully escaped justice, living a new life far from the consequences of his crimes. For Elena's family and the other victims of Richmond's fraud, his escape represented an unspeakable injustice. But the photograph from Elena's funeral remained, silent but damning evidence of Richmond's audacity. For over a century, this image held its secrets, waiting for technology to uncover the truth hidden in its shadows. Today, thanks to modern digital forensic techniques, we can finally see Richmond for who he truly was, not the respectable financial advisor he pretended to be, but the killer who had the nerve to stand among genuine mourners at his victim's funeral. This discovery not only solves a historical mystery but also shows how evidence can remain hidden for generations, patiently waiting for the right tools to bring the truth to light. Samuel Bennett's photograph didn't just capture a moment of family grief, it preserved irrefutable proof that even the most carefully planned crimes leave behind traces. If you were intrigued by this story of crime, mystery, and historical forensic discovery, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more investigations into old photographs that hide dark secrets. There are many more images waiting to reveal their mysteries, and you won't want to miss the next extraordinary discoveries we've uncovered. The story of Henry Richmond, Eleanor Ashford, and the mysterious photograph taken at her funeral stands as a chilling testament to the lengths some criminals will go to in order to protect themselves from exposure. For years, the image of Eleanor's funeral sat in silence, a seemingly innocent moment in time. Yet, beneath its surface, it contained evidence that would eventually unravel a complex web of deception, fraud, and murder. This tale, which began as an ordinary tragedy, unfolded into one of the most remarkable and chilling mysteries of the early 20th century, revealing not only the dark depths of human greed but also the remarkable power of modern forensic technology to bring long-buried secrets into the light. Richmond's story was one of calculated arrogance, where his desire to maintain his reputation and continue his criminal activities pushed him to commit murder. His presence at the funeral was more than an emotional response to a family loss. It was a strategic decision to assess and manage the threats posed by Richard Fleming, the investigator who had begun to unravel his financial fraud. The way Richmond manipulated every situation around him, from Eleanor's finances to the funeral photograph, speaks to a level of criminal sophistication rarely seen. He had carefully constructed a life built on lies, theft, and deceit, all the while maintaining a veneer of respectability that allowed him to operate without suspicion for so long. But the story doesn't end with Richmond's flight to South America. The true significance of this tale lies in the power of forensic technology to unearth truths that have been hidden for generations. The photograph, once thought to be just another sad family portrait, now stands as the key piece of evidence that tied Richmond to his crime. Through facial recognition and microscopic analysis, what was once a vague memory became irrefutable proof of his presence at the scene of his victim's funeral. The meticulous alterations to the photo, made to hide his identity, revealed the extraordinary lengths to which Richmond went to erase his guilt. The discovery of this photographic evidence was a game-changer, not just for the Ashford family but for all those involved in criminal investigations at the time. It demonstrated how one seemingly innocent moment could contain so much hidden truth, waiting to be uncovered by the right technology and the right people. This is why forensic science continues to evolve and remain a crucial part of criminal investigations today. The ability to analyze old evidence with modern tools has transformed the way we understand history and justice, showing us that no matter how well a crime is hidden, the truth will eventually emerge. In the years following Eleanor's death, her story became one of unresolved justice. Richmond's escape from authorities marked the end of a long search, leaving the Ashford family with an unsolved mystery and an unfinished sense of closure. But as modern technology has shown, some secrets cannot stay hidden forever. The photograph, the diaries, and the detailed investigation by Richard Fleming helped bring this case to light, even after decades of silence. It's a reminder that while criminals can sometimes evade justice for a time, the pursuit of truth is relentless, and the truth always finds a way to be known. This case also serves as a poignant example of the importance of careful documentation and the need for professionals, like photographers and investigators, to be meticulous in their work. Samuel Bennett's photograph was not just a record of Eleanor's funeral, it was the key to uncovering a conspiracy. His diary entry, the unexplained payment, and his role in altering the photo show how the smallest details can change the course of an investigation. This underscores the value of preserving evidence, whether it's through photographs, documents, or personal notes, and how these pieces of history can be the catalyst for justice long after the events have passed. In conclusion, The story of Eleanor Ashford and Henry Richmond is a powerful reminder of the dark side of human nature, how greed and desperation can lead people to unimaginable acts. But it is also a story of resilience, perseverance, and the pursuit of truth. Thanks to the dedication of people like Richard Fleming, the relentless progress of forensic technology, and the seemingly ordinary photograph that captured an extraordinary moment, the truth was eventually revealed. The secrets that once lay hidden in the shadows of time have now been brought to light, showing us that even the most carefully planned crimes cannot escape the scrutiny of justice forever.